Wooler, Oklahoma. I reserve the right to yield the remainder of my time to Rogers from Oklahoma.
That is your right.
Thank you, Sir Chair. I would like to bring up a few points to you guys. If you feed Africa, they will get bigger. When the population turns, when it grows, they will need to feed more people. When you have more people, they consume more food. And the food has not increased, might I remind you. So when they eat this food, it goes away. And when the food goes away, you have a larger population with no food, which in turn increases population growth in areas that cannot sustain it. I'd also like to remind you that in nature, this cycle happens all the time. It's constant and it's needed to keep the ecosystem in place. If you were to let one species dominate, or to have all of the food, or to eat all of the animals that they wanted, then the ecosystem would collapse. And this is just a natural cycle of the way the world works, the way we see it in animals and the way that studies have shown it in animals. I'd like to yield my time to Rogers.
Thank you, Ms. Wooler. Rogers, Oklahoma. What about Sudan? That is in Eastern Africa. What about Sudan? What about Burundi and Rwanda and Kenya and Uganda? What about Southeast Asia? What about the Caribbean and their hardships? This proposal does nothing for those areas. Why West Africa? If we need to provide aid for West Africa, we need to provide aid for other countries who are having issues too. We can't be selective. I yield my time to the chair.
Hampshire from Florida. Will the author yield to a series of questions? And I reserve the right to yield the remainder of my time to Brown from Pennsylvania.
That is your right, and author do you yield? Yes, the author yields.
Thank you. Does the IDA and the U.S. have a recourse to get the money, their loan money back, if the African nations refuse to pay it back when the time comes?
Yes, as the IDA states in its policy statement, the use of any proceeds is subject to the association.
Thank you. And also, can the government get the money back if the grant money is misused, as in it's not used for the purpose that it was given for?
Absolutely.
All right, thank you. As you can hear, if this goes to waste, the U.S. government and the IDA have recourse to get it back. The fact is, we need Africa as a trading partner. We can't just keep throwing money at them. The way we can get them more rich is by trading with them and building their companies up. Also, it was stated that if Africa got richer, they would have more food and they would eat up the food supply. The U.S. has enough, we have plenty of food to feed the entire world, even if the population increased. Food production has outpaced population growth. Also, it was said that we can't have a dominant species. We're people. We are one species. It's not like people from Africa are a different species of any kind that I know of. And I yield the remainder of my time to Brown from Pennsylvania.
Thank you, Delegate Sam Brown, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. Previous Speaker. First of all, we have to take some level of responsibility for West Africa. There have been several claims that these loans will go unpaid because of corrupt governments and past failures to pay back loans. Those loans were not paid because the United States and other Western nations implied strict regulations on these West African countries, forcing them to privatize their economies, which in turn destroyed their economies, destroyed local corporations. These loans are low interest, and they come with very few conditions, which will destroy their country. This will allow domestic African corporations to be built up, and in despite of the constant attack they come under from much more competitive foreign competition. This will, as the previous speaker stated, will build up African economies.
The speaker will now hear from another delegation.
I'd like to use the remaining of my time to hear from the Mali United Nations.
That is your right.
All right. The Failed State Index is an international index that is created by a majority of the nations that are in the United Nations, and it ranks all the proposals selected countries as all of them are in the top 30 of the most failed nations in the entire world. Basically, every part of their government, every part of their society, and every part of their business is a failed state, meaning they don't have any hope. Unfortunately, we can't do this proposal because this is not the right solution. If we really want to build a stable economy, we don't use the things that have not worked. We have to give the power of purchase to the people. We need to make a microfinancing program because unfortunately that is the most effective and most problem-solving solution, because if you give the power to the people, then the corruption will go away, because the problem is the corrupted powers have been the only reason why there hasn't been a stable economy in Western Africa. And by the way, Sudan is in the east, so that point is unfortunately negated. What we should do instead is make a microfinancing program to all countries that need it, all people that have hope. For all these reasons, I would now like to yield to Feeney from the Model United Nations. Sorry.
John Fury, Model UN. My main problem with this bill is that I believe that it is a misuse of an investment. If by giving money to West African governments to invest in technology, we put our money in the hands of corrupt government officials, particularly within the West government, which has had a history of corrupt government. The West African government is also going to be put into a situation where they can have a monopoly over West African industry. Also, if West Africa is expected to produce technology that has to compete with companies that have been there for many years, this would be impossible. Furthermore, America...
Thank you, Will.
Thank you, Sir Chair. My name is Zara Mahim from the California delegation, and I reserve the right to the remainder of my time to the delegate from Texas.
And that delegate's name is?
Zubia.
Thank you. That is your right.
Okay. West Africa is one of the world's most resourceful areas, and with the earth running low on precious natural resources such as iron, gold, and oil, it's about time that we invest money to fund infrastructure development in West Africa. In addition to the benefits for West Africa, the nations in the UN will also receive great benefits, such as more markets to export their products to and creating better ties with Africa. This proposal does an amazing job of not only giving these West African nations an economic boost, but also gives them the ability to invest in education and social services, thus creating a society more open to democracy rather than the extremists that are currently taking hold of these countries. Thank you, and I yield the remainder of my time to Zubia.
Zubia of Texas. I did a bit of research from CIA.gov, the World Factbook, on Nigeria and Cote d'Ivoire as a case study, and I found out that in 2003, because IMF loans to Nigeria were being corrupted, they pulled those loans. The IMF does have the ability and has in the past set the precedent that if there's a corrupt government, they will not fund you. So as to the argument that this is going to corrupt governments, that has been proven untrue in the past. Also, this is opening it for foreign investment, and when you have foreign investment, it's going to be less corrupt. Someone said that people in West Africa are going to have a monopoly over West African industry. No. Businesses that are exploiting the West African people currently are having a monopoly over the industry. A con speaker got up here and said that there is no regional economy to be developed. However, Africa is the most research-rich in pineapples, #1 world producer of cocoa beans, oil. If we look at Nigeria, we see that they pump out 1.25 billion barrels of oil a day, yet the GDP per capita is only 1,700. Also, we have to look at the fact that when there is more infrastructure development, then the availability of equity capital will increase. Thank you, Speaker.
Delegation will author here to a series of questions.
Do you yield, Author? The Author yields.
Author, can you give us an opening? Sorry, sir, can you give us some opening remarks?
All right. Well, I'd like to point out that I know many of you are concerned about corruption and that it's understandable given the history of the region, but let me point out that corruption stems largely from the government, as you have pointed out. And this proposal actually aims to target the private sector, target people who actually have an interest in economy and efficiency in their businesses. And furthermore, that IDA has an extensive oversight program for its loans. So for those of you concerned about corruption, please don't be. This will be a well-managed and well-overseen program. All right. I'd like to thank you, Delegate. You're very kind. Furthermore, for those of you who are wondering why West Africa, well, the Famine Early Warning System, which is a segment of USAID, it determined that West Africa, on average, is the most food-insecure region in the world. I understand that there are other regions in need of aid, but I felt that it would be foolish to overextend IDA and try to help everyone at once, and rather it would be more effective to target the most food-insecure region in the world first, develop it, and hopefully its benefits could spill over into neighboring regions like East Africa. I'd also like to just say that for those of you who are concerned about the return to us, understand that this is not only a humanitarian concern, this will also benefit the United States, as other delegates have pointed out, in terms of trade and in terms of security in the region. Because as we have seen with the Middle East, it is extremely dangerous to American interests to leave a natural resource-rich region unstable, undemocratic. And ladies and gentlemen, if we build up the economy, we build up the middle class, we build up democracy, because that, from the middle class, is where democratic reforms stem. Let me also just say that Royal Dutch Shell controls 40% of Nigeria's oil. 40% by one foreign company. There is something supremely wrong with that, especially considering that Royal Dutch Shell...
Thank you, Speaker. Your time has elapsed.